So Kathleen Wilson is presenting Managing Operating a Microsoft Private Cloud, how to apply the Microsoft Operations Framework. Kathleen is a program manager at Microsoft and an ITIL service management expert. Prior to joining Microsoft's corporate role, she was a consultant with Microsoft Consulting Services in Canada, where she delivered service manager for many North American customers. Kathleen has over 19 years of IT experience, starting in IT operations and moving towards ITIL Foundation certification starting in 1998. So been doing it for a while. Kathleen obtained her ITIL Service Manager certification in 2001 and was one of the first 4 people worldwide to receive the ITIL Application Manager Foundation in 2005. In February 2009, Kathleen received her MOF version 4 Foundation certificate from Exxon. Kathleen is the worldwide lead for Service Manager for Microsoft Services, and she is passionate about assisting Microsoft customers to increase their investment in their products by wrapping ITIL and MOF processes around Microsoft products. Kathleen is a regular contributor to the Microsoft Operations Framework and was a key contributor, sharing her knowledge on using service management in the private cloud to the latest MOF publication. With that, I will turn it over to Kathleen. Welcome, Kathleen.
Thank you, Rick. That was a great introduction. So today, these sessions are very short, so I'll try to get to the meat of it. We're going to really talk about what Microsoft is their brand of the private cloud, high-level overview of MOF, and then I'm going to dive in a bit more about managing and operating a Microsoft private cloud, and then show you a bit of where to get the guide. So the Microsoft private cloud, our story about the private cloud is around System Center 2012, and MOF provides the process to manage and operate our private cloud. So when looking at private cloud, we really look at it with the service model with it is we're really looking at service and request offerings, service level agreements, and proactive and reactive operations. So the first area I want to touch on is the service level agreements, and it's about driving a consistent service delivery experience by being able to embed support rules and measurements into the workflow and activities for work items. The second area is around release management and ensures that we have the changes in the organization through the change management requests, and then we have these in place with our System Center suite. And release management is about making sure that these changes are managed and released to minimize the impact and the duration of disruption to normal business. And the last one is what I call proactive and reactive operations. And this is about streamlining IT operation process and activities so we have greater consistency, productivity, and ensuring that we support compliance. To do this, we facilitate the rapid remediation or errors or the prevention of errors in our environment. And we have terms like self-healing our infrastructure, applications, and services, but we fix errors before they happen. So I want to talk about the two relationships when we come to the cloud. And on the left, you have the service consumer, and on the right, we have the service provider. The service provider has an ongoing relationship where the service provider is about identifying and delivering a standard set of IT services that the service consumer is going to consume. What we want to do is take these standard offerings and standardized services and provide a self-service experience for our customers to consume those services when they desire and when they want to the degree they want to, and know that we're delivering in a standardized manner and it's delivered the same time, every time, in a consistent manner. And we do this through self-service, automation, and standardization of our offerings. And between these two is automation. But it's not enough just to design a standard set of services and present them for people to consume through your service catalog. But if you need to scale, you have to have automation built into this, both from a process perspective as well as a systems perspective. And this is a cycle that goes on where we have the processes and systems delivering standardized services in a self-service experience, and the automation making it all happen, pulling it together so we can deliver it to our users over and over again. So when we talk about the private cloud elements at Microsoft, we really look at standardization, self-service, and automation. We standardize the services provided to our IT consumers. So designing and defining the services that we'll offer in the private cloud, define the request offerings that will be contained in the service offering, and identify who needs to be involved, approvals, notification, and fulfillment of the requests. Through a self-service portal, and that's a small screenshot of Service Manager there, we give consumers of IT the services that they want and access the services they needed. Again, we base our request offerings displayed on the service catalog offerings and based on user role. And ideally, based on SharePoint, this is an easy-to-navigate portal. In the back end, we use automation to automate the services and the systems necessary to fulfill consumers' requests. This could include automating the routing of requests for approval and notification, and actually automating the physical provisioning of virtual machines and service requests. To step back, I know there were some questions about what is MOF. And MOF is the Microsoft Operations Framework. And it was born in 1999, and it's free, available at microsoft.com/MOF. But the MOF framework organizes and describes all the activities and processes in managing and supporting an IT services in a life cycle. And we take these activities and processes and we represent them in service management functions that mirror the phase of the IT service life cycle. The goal of MOF is just to target practical guidance on the Microsoft platform. You can use it on other platforms, but our documentation and our guidance is question-based, so it will help you determine what you need now and what you may need in the future. MOF's high-level goals are to provide guidance to IT organization. A lot of the time you'll see the focus is on the IT pro or the IT professional responsible for managing the services. And our guidance is to help create, operate, and support IT services and ensure that the investment in IT delivers expected business value within an acceptable risk level. And really we're trying to focus on creating an environment through the life cycle where business and IT work together towards operational maturity. So when we talk about the IT service life cycle and MOF, we have 3 phases and then a layer. And the phases would be the plan, operate, and deliver, surrounded by the manage layer. So in the plan phase, we look at planning and optimizing the IT service to align with the business strategy. Through the deliver phase, if you're familiar with the Microsoft Solutions Framework or MSF, the deliver phase looks very similar to that, and that's through the design and delivery of IT services. Then from the ongoing operations support, we use the operate phase, and that's where you will find operations, customer service, problem management, and service monitoring and control. Then underneath this blue manage layer is really the management layer, and it incorporates governance, risk, and compliance, the team model, and change and configuration management. One thing is when I'm delivering MOF and training people on MOF, I look at the manage layer helps you move between each of the phases of the life cycle. And then each of the phases has service management functions and management reviews associated with it, which I'll talk in the next slide. So again, the goal for plan is to align and optimize IT services to support the business strategy. Deliver ensures that IT services are delivered effectively, deployed, and ready for operations. Operations ensures that IT services are operated, maintained, and supported to meet business needs. And the manage layer provides these operating principles and best practice guidance to ensure the IT investment delivers expected business value within the risk. So looking a little bit about the activities in MOF is that if we look at the plan phase, we have the business to IT alignment service management function, the reliability SMF, policy, and financial management. And within this phase, we have a service alignment management review and a portfolio management review. We call these basically time-based reviews. You could do them once a year or twice a year, where you'd be reviewing the services and do they align to the business needs. And the services in my portfolio, are they worthy enough to maintain or which services need to be added or retired. Looking over at the deliver phase, here we look at we talk about building in a project methodology within the IT lifecycle. So we look at the envision phase of delivering the IT services, going through project planning, build, stabilize, and deploy. Two management reviews associated with that is the project plan approval management review and the release readiness review, which actually happens before we deploy. And that's where we actually do our go and no-go decisions. In operations, again, we focus on operations, and that's the planning and managing and maintenance activities in operating an IT service. Service monitoring control, customer service, where we focus on the customer-facing aspect of IT services with service requests and incident, and problem management. The management review associated with the operate phase is the operational health review. And these are time-based management reviews. And when I'm working with customers, a lot of times we look at doing operational health reviews quarterly to ensure that the operations are running as healthy and implementing problems when we need to, or new service improvements for service monitoring and control, operations, or customer service. The managed layer, the blue layer, is where we focus on governance, risk, and compliance, change in configuration, and the MOF team model. And the team model focuses on the people aspect of MOF, where we look at putting the right people in roles, planning the work that needs to be done, and also a true separation between plan-driven work and interrupt-driven work. And in the managed layer, the management review associated with that is the policy and control management review. So a little bit about these management reviews. And we use these as controls to ensure that management validation checks that the process is working as it is, or that the business objectives are being met. And an IT service readiness to move from one phase to the next phase is confirmed by the management reviews, which ensure that the goals are achieved in an appropriate fashion and that IT goals are aligned with the goals of the organization. Goals of management review, no matter where they happen in the life cycle of MOF, is to provide management oversight and guidance, act as internal controls at the phase level of the IT life cycle, and assess the state of activities and prevent premature advancement into the next phase. This is where we capture organizational learning and improve processes through continuous service improvement.
Kathleen,
I want to take a pause here to see if there's any questions.
Yeah, quick question for you, Kathleen. Back one of the slides earlier talked about MOF being free. Can you maybe talk a little bit about what the rationale is behind that?
Yeah, and I have a lot of peers in the IT service management industry is that we do give away MOF for free. And actually, MOF is based on some of the Microsoft Solution Accelerators, so that's embedded into the Solution Accelerators. And we actually have free other guides that I'll talk a bit later. But our thoughts at Microsoft is we develop great products and we sell products and we sell licenses. But we need to share our expertise in managing and running it. So a lot of this expertise that's come out of MOF and in our best practice guidance through Solution Accelerators are the lessons learned from Microsoft IT, where we've actually built these best practices into free guidance for our customers to buy more Microsoft product, because when you're running a product well and you're getting good guidance on how to run it, they'll buy more licenses. So we do have, if you go to Microsoft.com/Solution Accelerators, all one word, you will find things such as infrastructure and planning guides for each one of the Microsoft technologies. We have deployment toolkits. We have one for Windows 7 and Office 2010. We have Solution Accelerators based on governance, risk, and compliance, which manage up to 472 regulatory compliance requirements. We have the Security Compliance Manager, and then we offer migration and planning guidance for our customers as well.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Good. So focusing on a little bit about what this presentation is all about is the managing and operating a Microsoft private cloud. And this guide actually describes how to manage and operate a Microsoft private cloud using Microsoft Operations Framework. In this guide, we made the assumption that it's a Microsoft-based cloud, and we apply the MOS IT service management principles to the private cloud conceptual architecture and technology stack, along with System Center. We use the 7 service management functions in the manage and operate and phases, or the layers. And we map each service management function to a cloud architecture component, and I'll show you that a bit later. And then we include the technology. There's a heavy focus on the management reviews in this guide because CSI is a must in the cloud. Because working with our customers, and luckily I wasn't on one of the consultants on the early adopter for the Microsoft private cloud. And really, when we're talking about cloud services, moving my customers to standardizing the service offerings, you know, when you're provisioning virtual machines, you only have small, medium, and large, because you have to be ruthless about standardization if you plan to do more automation with System Center moving forward. So that was one of my taglines at the Microsoft Management Summit, is that ruthless standardization leads to more opportunities for automation. So this is a screenshot of the guide. It's currently in beta version, and really it's managing and operating a Microsoft private cloud and how to apply MOS to it. Are there any questions?
Nothing right now, Kathleen, so everything seems okay.
Okay.
Yep, just keep rolling. I'll just keep an eye out here. The only thing I would say is, a question I would have is, on this slide right here, why is the MOS guide focused only on the private cloud? Any answers to that?
Yeah, so the reason why we had to focus just on the Microsoft private cloud is that a big push at Microsoft, of course, is it's all about cloud. And specifically, we're seeing a lot of customers more interested in the private cloud right now. So we needed to build a guide that was readily consumable by our customers who are adopting the new System Center 2012 stack and Server 2012 to better manage this. The guide is really focused on the IT professional and the people who will actually be deploying and managing the technology. And what we found is that sometimes our process guidance is lost, or it falls upon, they get very frustrated with process documentation, the IT pro. So we found that, you know, we needed to embed our process guidance from MOS and integrate it into the tool sets and system centers to help enable the IT pro do their job better and meet business requirements for a private cloud. Again, CSI and automation are the key objects in operating and managing a private cloud. And again, we need to be looking at things like capacity management, service requests, request offerings, approvals, notifications. And again, this is where we embedded all of Microsoft's Operations Framework goodness into the model. So going back to where the private cloud architectural layers for Microsoft is that we have these 5 layers. We have the self-service layer, the orchestration layer, the management layer, the automation layer, and the virtualization layer. Whereas self-service is a key attribute of the cloud, which allows the private cloud tenants or authorized users to request and access services such as virtual machines that are provided by the cloud architecture. And the technologies that we use at Microsoft for the self-servicing are the Virtual Machine Manager portal or the Service Manager portal for the self-service layer. When we go into orchestration, it's really the interface between the IT organization and the infrastructure. It's the engine that we use for IT process automation and workflow, and it should provide the ability to design, test, and implement and monitor these IT workflows. And we use System Center Orchestrator, formerly known as Opalus in the industry. A lot of people have probably used Opalus. So we use Orchestrator in our orchestration layer. Now in the management layer, we need tools and systems that deploy, operate, and monitor the infrastructure. And for the most part, these tool sets are for managing hardware, software, and monitoring applications. And the applications that we use Operations Manager, System Center Operations Manager, and again, Virtual Machine Manager to monitor the health of the virtual machines in the environments. Now, talking about automation, you can't be manual in the cloud. As I said, it's like you need to be at a higher process maturity and tool maturity in order to do automation and private cloud. And really, it's all about automation. And we need to automate basic operations, over the lifetime of a hardware, software component, or an application. And we need to create a series of single-purpose commands or scripts that perform operations such as start and stopping virtual machine, restarting a service, or applying software updates. And for automation, we can use PowerShell and Service Manager to script and manage automation in the private cloud. And virtualization. And this is really what started the movement to the cloud, because, private cloud is just not about virtualization. It has to have all these architectural layers in there. But really, virtualization is the abstraction of resources for compute, network, and server. So, diving down, what's inside of the guide? Well, when we talk about the MOF Manage layer, we've applied the team service management function, governance, risk, and compliance, and change in configuration. The management reviews, which are truly, truly key that I found when I was working on this private cloud guide, is that the management reviews were key, and this is where we took a lot of time reviewing what we would do in a private cloud during the management reviews, such as the service alignment and the policy and control management review. So again, the primary tasks for governance, risk, and compliance are to identify applicable regulations and standards and create the policies and map the policies to the control objectives in the private cloud. We need to figure out what controls we can use to mitigate risks and create a compliance plan. And we need to maintain compliance, operate the controls, and monitor for violations and audit as needed. For example, applying GRC to the self-service layer is that we need to ensure that the self-service layer is in compliance and supports the organizational goals and policies by allowing cloud tenants and authorized users to request, manage, and access services such as virtual machines. The primary tasks for change and configuration management are baselining the configuration, submitting change requests, and including that a proposal or classification of the change type in the private cloud, and get approval or rejection of the change. Writing change plans for the proposed change and testing, and we should also identify, using configuration management, the ripple effects of the change in the private cloud. We need to implement the change and communicate it to the necessary audiences and verify that the change worked, and update the configuration in the configuration management system. So, example, applying change and configuration to the management layer would ensure that changes made to System Center Virtual Machine Manager, Operation Manager, and Service Manager are managed and tracked using version control and using possibly the configuration management database to identify upstream and downstream effects. When we talk about the team in the MOF management layer, really what we're looking in the private cloud guide is identifying the work that needs to be done in the private cloud, identify who and the roles responsible for that work, and making sure that the work gets done. So again, the goal of team management in this layer is to ensure that someone's ultimately accountable for operating and maintaining the private cloud self-service interface so that tenants can or authorized users can request, manage, and access services without staff involvement with minimal IT disruption. Now, applying the MOF operating phase in the private cloud guide is really looking at operating, monitoring, servicing customer, and managing private cloud through problem management. So we apply problem management there. Again, very important here is the operational health management review in the private cloud, enabling continuous service improvement and other opportunities for better automation and better self-healing of the private cloud. So it focuses what to do the operate phase on what after services or the private cloud's in place. It's really the steady state for the environment in which IT service exists. And again, the two management reviews that focus on this as well, the one management review is the operational management health review. So in a cloud environment, most of the operating tasks, the goal is to have them all automated. And then the goal of the private cloud is to automate maintenance and monitoring tasks as much as possible. So customer service tasks are automated via the portal, but some tasks or requests may require non-standard requests may require manual intervention. When reviewing operations, the primary management review evaluates whether or not the cloud is working effectively, is the cloud meeting expectations, and recommends and remediates change whether or not it's needed. So the outcome of the operational management health review could be change requests for continuous improvement of both processes and technology in the private cloud. So some of the reports that you would look at, and this is where we dove down looking at the different outcomes of the System Center tools, what type of reports we could get out of these, is that, what are the percentage of service requests being completed on time? The percentage of tasks for these requests that are manual versus which ones are automated. The number of new requests for the private cloud, number of decommissions, number of incidents affecting the portal, and portal availability. This would result, in action items or outcomes from these types of reviews to where we could address better orchestrator, management, and automation at the self-service layer. Other things that you should be looking at in the analysis and decision are that, are you meeting your SLA objectives for service requests and incidents, or are you overachieving them? And this could be a reason that you've set your SLA targets too low, or you're not meeting them all and you're just under-delivering the private cloud service. So one of the things I found working with customers is that when we talk about the cloud, we talk about elasticity, versus, the growth and the shrinkage. And one of the things that I've found with customers is that we have a lot of requests for new services, but I'm not seeing a lot of requests for decommissions. And really during the operate phases, this is where we should be looking at, feeding into capacity management and planning and even IT financial management, is that are the services at an appropriate cost, right? One of my customers is that they just grew, and they keep growing and growing and growing. They're at 750 virtual machines, and then management was like, well, this private cloud's really great because we're getting, servers within hours, but I'm not seeing them shrink. And one of the things we thought is that maybe that the cost of providing the service is not prohibitive enough for people to actually decommission their services or their servers moving forward. So that's looking at this in the operate phase is, are we being realistic about the service we're delivering our customers, and what's the growth pattern coming up? The other thing that you will get when you go to download the guide is it's a great spreadsheet where we're actually layering the architectural layers and then the different layers of the MOF service management of functions in there and the intersection of both. So again, the Excel guide that comes with this actually provides you, the technologies that you need to do. So if I was to look at the administration, the tenant architectural layer, when I'm looking at operations, is running and maintaining the private cloud and the tenant user service interface so that tenants can, access and be authorized to request services with minimum disruption and minimal staff involvement. When we're looking at things such as orchestration, is that we need to make sure that we look at the types of service requests coming through the self-service portal that requiring management at a manual level, that we need to be looking at what we can automate with Orchestrator. Because Orchestrator could also call out to other applications or files and create the workflow and the automation of the tasks needed for the private cloud. So what's next for operating the private cloud? Well, the guide right now is currently in beta. And as of yesterday, we had over 900 downloads. And I ask all of you who are interested in that to please have a look at the guide and provide us with the feedback. That's all in that. And our final version will be shipping in July. We're going to update it too with the latest releases of System Center as well. Now, how do I get the guide? Well, there's a link here in the presentation, and I know the attendees will also be sent out a link here, is that you just go to connect.microsoft.com. You will need this invitation code as well and a Windows Live ID to access it. Scroll down to the Microsoft Operations Framework and then click the link to join the MOF beta program. We also offer other MOF guides as well, or the infrastructure and planning guides that you can reach through here, and you will be notified via email when new releases or when the final version ships.
Excellent. Kathleen, just a quick question for you while maybe some other folks post a question. And just if you could, just in closing out, just one piece of advice around process and tools, with respect to this journey to the private cloud, what would be kind of number one in that piece of advice that you'd offer everyone on the call today?
I think it's the management reviews and the ability to do continuous service improvement. Continuous service improvement and automation are the two key things that you need to be looking at when you're going to the private cloud. And you really need to investigate and analyze, how the private cloud is being consumed, who's using it, areas for better automation. I think, too, is that, the private cloud, as I said, I think my last presentation is like the new black in IT. And this is where we really need to be looking at our processes and our procedures and automating them with tool sets. A lot of times what happens is process guides get put up on shelves and they collect dust. It's really key to be looking at is that, looking at the processes and procedures, automating them within the private cloud, and then constantly reviewing through CSI to look for better opportunities to deliver better service and automation. And again, I would have to go is like your journey to the private cloud, ruthless standardization. You have to be ruthless about it. A couple of customers I've worked with, they were so used to when requesting new virtual machines that the application developers could request whatever they wanted, how much RAM, how much CPU, how much storage. And in order for them to commit to the level of services that they want and better plan and charge back, is that we really needed to start looking at, you get small, medium, or large, and that's it. So instead it's, through CSI, they found that these people who were asking for larger servers really didn't need them. They just asked because they can get, and they could in the past. So there was also that people aspect, a lot of cultural change of moving to the private cloud, right? And getting people to accept standardization and automation is the key to go in IT.
And what would you say is, internally when people are evaluating the movement to the private cloud, whether it's legitimate or not, what are you typically seeing as the number one barriers that are put up by internal folks?
I think a lot of this is like, we've been there, we've done that, we've tried that with the dynamic data center. I think that was a lot of things. The barriers is that just standing up the technology without the plan, right? And, understanding, well, what is your private cloud going to do, right? It's great that you're going to put up a private cloud, but what business capability is it going to provide? How is it going to help the business, make more money, faster time to market, be more profitable, all these other stuff. And a lot of people, we tend to get down the weeds on the technology and get distracted by the shiny objects as opposed to understanding it's like, what are acceptable levels of service? What are the services you're going to be offering? So I think the first thing is, what's your private cloud going to offer? So a lot of customers I've been working with have been doing private cloud around application test and development environments. And, understanding that just buying the tool sets doesn't necessarily get you the private cloud. It's the integration of the process and the people and the technology, and constantly looking and reviewing and doing that CSI piece. And I think a lot of times what we do in IT is that we just buy a tool set, we implement it, but we don't take care of it from a care and feeding or look at improving service delivery by using tool sets. Like we keep process in one corner, we keep people in another, and we keep the tools in another. And really, and I think this is what we've been trying to do with dynamic data center, utility computing, and private cloud all along, is really marrying those three. And your plan, before you start running setup, should really address those three things before you actually start installing and running and building up the infrastructure.
And last question here right now. So can you comment on the journey to the private cloud and how, if anything, I'm not sure if you can comment on this, but how you're seeing that the landscape is changing in terms of who is providing the support services? Contrast that with whether it's internal, whether it's third-party applications, whether it's, are you seeing anything changing in terms of how we've traditionally looked at support based on this movement to the cloud?
Yeah, I'm actually working with my team as a program manager because we're offering a cloud-based survey process, and we're actually integrating application developers to do incident management, which is kind of, that's usually either second or third level support. But if we're looking at a lot of them now, they're getting application developers and the people who are expert in the application to actually do the frontline support, which is a little different.
Potentially could be costly per incident, but maybe you're also getting a bigger bang for your buck there, right? So.
Yeah, well, that's it. And then I think that the thought process behind that is that I'm getting the expert right up front.
Right.
And it could be costly. The other thing is the testing in production. This was a new thing that came out for me. In the past, that nobody ever had testing in production, and now when we talk about cloud, we're actually testing things and implementing things in production, and we're looking at zero downtime for changes because we're actually, supposedly cloud is resilient enough and all these resources that you can implement change and you shouldn't see the failure. That was when my boss put out a blog post on testing in production, and I was kind of shocked by that because at Microsoft, we're now saying, yeah, we test in production. I'm like, that's a little different than what we used to do a few years ago.
Interesting. If anybody has any comments with respect to that, a couple more minutes here, we'll just stay on just with the comment that Kathleen just made about that, because I can see how that could create interesting debate on different sides. Yeah.
Well, I think it's what they're trying to say is that some of the cloud services, so if we talk about the Azure platform, that the Azure platform at Microsoft is supposedly resilient enough with enough failover built into it that if a change or a test fails in production, it's not visible to the end user because you're able to shift workload to other aspects of your private cloud.
Interesting.
Anybody
Okay.
else comment on that testing in production? I know I still haven't drank that glass of green Kool-Aid yet. But working with the team, because I'm now in the software development side, they're starting to talk about this, and I'm very nervous about it myself personally.
Right.
Right. But
right.
They when I talk to my dev leads, they're like, no, it's no problem at all. We can do it.
Yeah, and actually, which is great, because that leads back to your previous comment, the fact that the app developers are actually going to be fielding the incidents makes everybody more comfortable with it. Instead of saying, hey, yeah, no, it's going to work, we all know typically that then, sometimes the app developers might not end up seeing the issues that arise when the thing actually doesn't work and it's an oops, and it's the frontline support that get inundated, where if the app developers are now involved in seeing that on the fly, then I think you might have a little bit better communication and understanding when something does go wrong, even if, quote unquote, it shouldn't have happened.
Well, exactly, and we adopt the agile method of doing application development. And we've been doing that. And our belief is that by having the application, developers so close to the actual operations of that, we can still maintain that agile life cycle and address bugs and fixes quicker.
Excellent. Well, the other thing is for anybody that's thinking about this and thinking about how to, what questions that they might have for Kathleen. Kathleen's got her contact information up there, so please feel free to reach out in the multiple places. We've got a LinkedIn account, we've got an email account, we've got a Twitter account. So Kathleen is very accessible. If you have any follow-up questions or debating points, please feel free to reach directly to Kathleen. I'm sure she would be more than happy to field those. And just one last thing too, Kathleen, can you just, again, just to confirm how they can access the free downloadable guide managing and operating a Microsoft private cloud?
Yeah, so I guess if you download this presentation, you click on this link on how to get it. Now, you'll need a Windows Live ID. If you don't have one, you can sign up for one right away. That's how we actually control most of our stuff now in the cloud, is all through a Windows Live ID at Microsoft.
Okay.
I can only get it using my Windows Live ID. I think what I want to ask a question of the audience is, and maybe by a show of hands, I don't know if you can do hands up, is that how many people are on the call actually considering moving to a private cloud?
I think are you still there?
Yes.
Oh, good. Sorry, I just hit a button there trying to see if I could, you know what, I'm just trying to see if I could do a quick poll here, and I think I might mess something up. So maybe we can actually have, as a follow-up to this, we could actually do a little quick survey as a follow-up and then see if we can get that question answered. So if you can work with maybe work with Jamie on doing a follow-up to those who attended and just see what kind of answers you get, that would be great.
Yeah, no, that'd be great.